I'm going to show you how to get unlimited leads for your business today. Because whether you're a coach, agency owner, or founder, you're going to need more leads. And I'm going to show you exactly the method that we use, plus the method we've used with over 500 of our clients, so that they're constantly getting new leads that are qualified, most importantly qualified, that want to work with them. I'm going to walk you through my exact philosophy of how we get leads, how we nurture the leads, and how we close the leads. Because for you specifically in your business right now, whether you're making 6 figures a year or 7 figures a year or even 8 figures a year, you do need more leads and you need to work them in a constant motion. The worst place that you can be in is saying that, oh, everything's okay with my business right now. I'm just going to slow down and I'll start my lead generation again in the future. That is kind of basically like trying to lose weight overnight. It's like eating a bunch of donuts and saying, oh, I'm just going to go on a diet tomorrow and lose weight overnight. It doesn't happen like that. Same with getting clients. You cannot turn on client acquisition overnight and get clients. Marketing and sales take some time to ramp up. Now, many coaches will tell you otherwise, but that is the reality. Client acquisition is made up of marketing and sales, and that's what I'm going to walk through today. So, in our unlimited leads framework and playbook, it boils down into 3 different concepts. The first concept is going to be organic. This is your organic content, okay? This is very important to be the absolute baseline in what you do, because no matter what you're trying to do in your business, whether you have sales reps or you don't have sales reps, your organic is going to be your base underneath. This is basically your level of competency. And why I like to always start with this is because before anyone likes you or knows you or trusts you, you have to become competent. And I'm going to show you exactly specifically what's the level of competency you can bring up with your prospects so they know, okay, you're the guy or the girl that can get the job done. The first step in here always, which we always focus on, is the origin story. So your origin story is who you are, specifically your values, your interests, your mission, and your vision. If we can detail specifically, like basically what you do and how you do it and why you do it, people buy into you. As I always say, people buy the person, they don't buy the product. People buy the individual, people buy the values, and the more values that you can share in your content, the better it's going to be. I'll take an example. I share a lot in my story about where I grew up, my background, what I struggled with in the past. I struggled with alcohol in the past, partying, and so on. I share that on my story, and that attracts other people who have a similar background as me. Also, my values are heavily built around marriage, my dogs, my animals, my fitness, and my health. I detail all of this down because a lot of those basically premises and principles apply in all aspects of my life and also in my actual business. So, in that origin story, this is a constant feed of content. The reason why I always start with this is because, yes, you can have YouTube content that is your origin story, but everything is your origin story. So let me give an example. If I'm teaching you how to get leads, like today, I can start with a story saying in 2020, I was putting out content, not getting any leads, not getting any likes, not getting any engagement. So I know what it feels like to be at that very beginning and not have anything to do with it and not knowing anything to do with this process. So because I can detail that down, that gets a lot of attraction from people that are like, okay, I like this guy. He knows his stuff, at least to a little bit of a degree. I can explain that in more details. But most importantly, I like his values, which is most important. They like and attract to the values. After this, then we get into a bit more tactical levels of content. Because from here, we need to be able to showcase with your origin story, how is it you do what you're actually doing? So from here, the actual tactical content is specifically what is it inside of your content right now that you can help people with. These are your guides, your frameworks, your tactics, your tools. If we're helping business owners and agency owners and coaches scale their business, we need to show them client acquisition, we need to show them retention. So in there, I have very tactical based content. The thing with this tactical based content is that people don't fall in love with you for it, but people use it and get results. I always think of fitness. Back in the day, the OG fitness influencers, they would have like a lot of story led content, like here's how I was a hobo beforehand and so on. They weren't great at tactical content, which is why they weren't actually able to scale a lot of their businesses because they never really had a moat. They were just very similar to everyone else, which is the unfortunate truth. And then we peel down into our frameworks. Okay. So inside of our frameworks here, this is basically our proprietary systems. Okay. So what we do better than anyone else is an ecosystem. We build people in an ecosystem. That is a proprietary framework that we've designed in our business that we help other businesses with. The reason why we want to have a lot of frameworks is because this is stuff that we can really hit over and over again. People are like, I remember Darren for the ecosystem. I remember Darren for a lot of basically the principles that he's able to apply with his actual business. And the other side of it then is going to be objection handling content. So why I love objection handling content is if you take sales calls and let's say they don't close, or you're in DMs and people are saying, I don't know what you do. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know the value of it. This is what we create in objection handling content. We showcase specifically how we can overcome those objections, because every single objection that you have on a call is actually going to become a sales asset in organic. This is the thing. We're not optimizing for likes. We're optimizing for leads. And by optimizing for leads, objection handling content will solve this specific problem that we have. Once we have this base layer finished, this basically breaks up into 3 different components. Because up here, the first part of organic, we have our story. We always want to be hammering our story. The next stage in there, we have all of our tactics. This shows credibility and it shows basically authority. So now we go from not being a potato on the internet and being a robot to being someone that people want to listen to. And then we have what's going on, like what's actually happening in the universe, because we also need to be up to date with what is happening, which is our trend content, what's specifically happening in the actual, like the world, okay? What is applicable to their specific scenario, right? So I want to look at like anecdotal content. So specifically, let's say your prospect is a trader, they're a nutritionist, who's that actual person? And then the other side of it then is case studies. So this is all to do with the person, okay? Let me give you an example. If we're looking at what's coming up, let's say with AI right now and content with AI, well, we are basically anti-AI from creating content, which is why I'm sitting here creating this video, standing here. That is the trends in the market. So I can look at what's happening in the universe and then decide to lean into it or not lean into it. Same with the actual anecdotal content. I want to look at specific scenarios of what I'm doing. This is why mentoring, if you have a mentorship, people look at what you are doing. Because if I am getting up early, creating content, looking at ways to improve my own business, guess what people do? They want to do that for themselves. So they actually mirror your behaviors with anecdotal content. And then the last part of it here is case studies. Case studies, testimonials. We have, I don't know, hundreds of case studies, receipts, results, if not thousands, that we document a lot in our content. And we build this into all of our organic. Now, across the story-led stuff, the authority stuff, and then the situational stuff, I want to look at how does this lead into lead flow? Well, there's a few things here that I've actually personally learned myself over the years, which is I genuinely believe that organic content has a cap. It only grows as fast as you grow. And unless you're like basically growing like this all the time, it runs into a serious cap. And the cap is different for everyone. The cap for us was 1 million a year. We literally got super capped out, about 1.5 million a year, got capped out in this model because our organic hit a ceiling. And I think it was at this point where I looked at, okay, where can I squeeze the juice out of this? What is it we can do to optimize our organic content and make sure that this basically gets put on steroids? And that's when we moved into ecosystem content. So this model is the model that we teach, which is you have organic content, and that's up here. This is propagated. And then you run paid ads through here. So your ads in the middle, this is what actually propagates your organic. Because if you're not running organic at a high level, then when you're running ads, all the metrics, so keep it very simple. The cost it takes to get a call goes up. The cost it takes to acquire a client goes up. Whereas when the organic does the heavy lifting, guess what we do? We optimize our best quality organic to become our ads. Let me say that again. We look at what's happening in organic and we look at how can we basically use that to put that on steroids. which is what we do with our ads. And we run awareness ads only as part of the ecosystem, because the ecosystem propagates what we do. We have content that solves a painful problem for a specific user that's easy to find online. When we do have that created and it hits, and we know that we're getting good engagement for me is leads, not likes. And I know, okay, this system works. This got us leads to a CAC. This is unlimited. So what happens is we have best performing content, which we can transfer into paid content. So what we do is we look at our best content on organic. We basically turn this into an ecosystem ad. We target specifically who we want to go after. So for us, it's people based in America, Canada, and Australia, which is our main target market. We look at, can we target that exact specific market? And then we look at the actual metrics behind it, which is followers. Okay. So we look at how many followers are coming in. And then we look at what is the qualified followers that come in. It's a very, very important point, because let's just give an example. If I'm going up 100 followers a day, and let's just say 20 are qualified followers, okay? That's 20% qualified. That's a very, very simple, important metric for me to be able to scale. So if I know that if I turn something into an ad, and I know specifically that I'm able to get qualified followers coming in, these qualified followers, where are they going to go? The qualified followers come back into the organic content. Because unlike traditional VSL ads, this model works completely different, because when they come in, they're like, I like this guy. The content that they're enjoying is just helpful, it's valuable. And then they come in here and start following the content again. So there's a few things that happen here as a result. Now we have a few things, whereas we have like ad spend, right? And let's just say we spend $100 a day. You don't need to start with $100 a day, but let's say you did start with $100 a day. And if we knew that we could get 20 followers from there, well, the cost per qualified follower is super low. Let me give an example. If I know I can get qualified followers for sub $12 a follower, qualified follower, I know I can scale it. And what's most important here is you got to take a step back in terms of, we have leads coming in. We got to look at the ticket price. We sell high ticket. Everyone in the world should sell high ticket. Selling low ticket is a terrible idea. And with the cost per qualified follower being relatively low, I know that if my LTV, lifetime value of a client, is $8,000, they'll come to a mastermind, buy a program, come into a service, maybe use our recruitment service as well at the same time, then I have a infinite money glitch. Like, I literally have a way to constantly make money forever. This, and I'm going to give you the caveats in a minute about how to really optimize this, but this is the model. And this is as complicated as it gets, because all you need to know is your cost per qualified follower low? Okay. Then let's take a step back from here. Let's just say that the final thing we might want to add to this actually is our CPC. So our cost per call. For us, it's like, $200 roughly. Okay. Roughly. And then the ROAS based on this. So what's interesting is these ecosystem ads, the ROAS is way higher. So ours can be anywhere between, let's just say, 5 and 8 on a month. What that means is, let's say I spend $1,000, we're getting back 5,000 in return as a result. And then we just scale it. So that's like basically the full model. And then this is how I know that I can always, and I mean literally, like quite literally always, have leads coming in, because they're coming in off organic and they're being amplified off the ads straight away. And then from the ads, we know that we just have quite literally a shit ton of leads always. And when they come in, the beautiful part about an ecosystem ad is that it's not dependent on them hitting a VSL and booking in that moment. Once the organic's up and running, once the ecosystem's up and running, the last point is, can you guess? It is sales. It's always a sales process, because all your organic, all your paid is all worthwhile when you close the deal. If you don't close the deal, it's literally not worthwhile. So the first stage is the DM setting. Okay. Now, the big difference here is this only works if you actually set people. If you don't set people, cost per call doesn't exist. The client acquisition costs don't exist. Basically, nothing exists. So unless you actually close people and you actually learn sales, then all of this just like will never work. It just doesn't work. Which is why we teach sales. This is the reason why in our programs, we literally teach founder sales, because I don't care if you run organic, I don't care if you run paid. If you can't close a 6K pay in full, you'll never be able to close a door in your entire life, right? So it doesn't make sense. So the first stage here is setting. So what I like to do here is we run content into a sales process. And in the sales process, I simply just ask people, have they seen a lot of content? Are they familiar with our content right now? If they're not, they might need more education. So they might need more organic content, whether that's Instagram content, YouTube content. If they are familiar with that, all we're trying to do from there is find pain, problem, literally process as well. What have they tried beforehand? And most important is duration. So I'll give an example. If someone comes to us and they have an agency and they're making 2K a month, okay, whatever, they're just getting started. But if they're making 2K a month for 6 months, that's a massive issue. So that's why the duration of the problem, honestly, is literally more substantial than basically anything else. So we're trying to find pain, we're trying to find the problem, we're trying to really dial that in, and we're trying to make sure that this is a process that we can really nail over and over again. And then from here, we also need to be able to book. So we need to have pain, problem, duration, and then the process is what? The process is always the call, because we need to get people on 2 calls. Like that's literally the whole logic is organic propagates, ads ignite, the DMs set, and then we need the call structure at the end. So on the call structure, that's when we redo the exact same process of going pain, problem, process, price. Pain, problem, process, price. It never ever changes. The granularity of the call gets a bit deeper depending on B2C, B2B, ticket prices, and so on. But in essence, that's basically the entire model. And from here, then, we only have 2 options. They can come up here, they can close, and then the deal is done. Cost of acquisition is basically established. They start the journey, they start the LTV journey, they start working with you on a longer term horizon, or they don't close and they go into nurture. The amount of deals that we didn't close, that we didn't light the leads on absolute fire, that came back around and bought 45 days, 60 days, 2 years is actually crazy, because what we try to do is they come back into our organic. They like my reels, they like my YouTube videos, they watch YouTube videos, and that's okay. You don't need to buy something immediately. What you need to do is put people onto a nurture universe, not a nurture campaign, right? Nurture campaigns don't work. If I just send you an email once every 2 weeks saying, can you buy my stuff? You're not going to buy my stuff. But if I create a nurture ecosystem, that means the leads that I brought in were not burnt alive and scorched alive, but instead they sit in the world and we allow them to cook. We literally give them time to just breed, get what they needed done, get whatever they need out of the way, and make sure that they come back when they do actually come back. And that is the entire actual process, right? There is nothing else involved in this process. Obviously, we'll dial up the LTV if your cost of acquisition goes up, but to actually get more leads, like this is the entire process overall. Now, I do want to give a few caveats, because otherwise, like, what am I doing? Few things. Organic. Why organic has a cap is because it grows in this weird saturation period. Your current audience gets kind of stale. They're kind of like sick of you a small bit because they're seeing the same stuff over and over again. The new audience is slow to come in, okay? Unless you're like Hormozy, right? It's like, we're not all Hormozy. We're not all getting like 1 million leads a day. So I'm just saying, for the average Joe, who's a fitness coach, who has a B2C offer, who's making 8K a month, you got a bit of a cap, right? That's the first thing. So if that's the case, we got to understand that. We got to move into the ad section. If you are running these follower ads, A lot of guys will say, don't do this, but I'm telling you, you have to do this model. Okay. In our programs, we track this very closely. Followers, qualified followers, cost per qualified follower, how much that is, and cost per call. It's not that difficult. You can get a VA to do it. You just got to do it. Like, somebody has to do it. It's just that unfortunately most people don't do it. And you need to be on top of this. And the last point is here, the sales side. So the thing is, if you're going to set your own calls, you're probably not going to do a bad job in the beginning because it's your business, you know what you're doing and so on. Well, you could do a bad job. You need to learn setting. But if you put in a setter, there is a high possibility that they will light these leads on fire. It's just literally it's just possible, right? So what does that mean? That means you need to train your team to not light leads on fire. Same way you taking the calls. Respectfully, you probably suck at taking sales calls because there is like a way to do it, right? And the way I think about it is like, if you're a good footballer, it doesn't mean that you can just become a baseball player. Now you have fundamentals. You have like basically hand-eye coordination. You're pretty skillful. You have good stamina, good energy, whatever. But the actual skill, it's a different skill. It's a different thing, right? So that's something to be careful of. And then the nurture as well. People don't, what I like to call is pipeline sell. So the last point here is pipeline. This means that every single person that comes into your world, they need to literally be nurtured properly, and you need to hit them again 45 days later. This is not done. I'm telling you, I work with hundreds of businesses. They do not know the difference in a pipeline and a new lead list, right? So you need to be able to understand how many leads can you hit every month. A simple example of this is when the month starts on the 1st, you should have a lead list that you should be hitting. When the month finishes on the 30th, you should have another lead list of the past month that you should be hitting. Because if someone comes into your ecosystem, it is your duty as a business owner to manage this process down. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Unlimited Leads Playbook. This works for absolutely everybody. We get over 150, 200 leads a day coming to our business. All it goes down to is getting the right content, the right paid, the right setting in place so that this allows you to hit, let's say, 1 million a year, or for a lot of my clients, on path to hit 1 million a month. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know down below, and I'll have more whiteboard videos like this coming out soon. Thank you.